In 1802, an interesting chapter began in the Caribbean. A total of 5,280 Polish soldiers serving in the French army landed on the colony of Saint-Domingue on the island of Hispaniola. They were sent by Napoleon Bonaparte to suppress a massive uprising that had turned the colony into a battleground. More than 100,000 enslaved people had risen up in what would become one of the two largest slave rebellions in recorded history, rivaled in the Western imagination only by the revolt of Spartacus in ancient Rome. The odds were bleak for the French. The colony's population was around 538,000, including approximately 453,000 slaves, 38,500 white colonists, and 28,000 free people of color. Although the Polish soldiers were only a small part of this vast and divided colony, their legacy would leave a significant mark on its political and cultural history. Let's start with the question why. Why were Polish soldiers in the French army? Between 1772 and 1795, Russia, Prussia, and Austria partitioned the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, erasing Poland from the map. Thousands of Polish patriots were left without a state, without an army, and with no path toward independence. Many believed that service under French command offered the only realistic chance of restoring a Polish homeland. Napoleon's rise encouraged this hope, and so Polish officers and volunteers joined the Polish legions that fought across Europe. They did not serve out of devotion to France, but because France was the only power that seemed open to the possibility of a future Polish state. These men came from many backgrounds in Poland, united by a belief that service abroad might one day translate into sovereignty at home. They arrived in Saint-Domingue expecting that their service would ultimately serve Poland. That belief collapsed almost immediately. The land they stepped onto was not a distant battlefield, but a country in the middle of a revolution for human freedom. In less than a year, an estimated 4,000 out of the 5,280 Poles died, mostly from yellow fever and the brutal conditions of the campaign. Their heavy European uniforms were unbearable in the Caribbean heat, and their training for tight line formations proved disastrous against the guerrilla tactics of the revolted slaves. Letters written by Polish soldiers in 1803 describe fever-ridden camps, collapsing morale, and battlefield chaos unlike anything they had experienced in Europe. I am writing to you for what is probably the last time before my death, because all that remains of my 3rd Brigade is 300 men and some officers. All the rest are dead. I am filled with despair as I write, and much regret my decision to come to the Americas and would not recommend it now even to my worst enemy. Far better to be a beggar in Europe than to seek one's fortune in the Americas, where 1,000 sicknesses can do for you. We should all like to quit the army, but the French forced us to continue to fight. I should like to return to Europe, at least for a few months, and think of it day and night. As they pushed inland, the Poles witnessed burning villages, families executed in the name of order, and entire communities fighting for the same freedom Poland had lost. The contradiction became impossible to ignore. They had joined France to fight for a future Polish homeland, yet here they were ordered to destroy a population fighting for its own liberation. As disease devastated the French ranks and violence intensified, many Poles deserted and defected. The remaining survivors refused to continue a campaign that echoed the oppression they themselves had lived under. Some Poles went into the mountains and lived among rural Haitians. Around 400 of them joined the revolutionary forces to support the struggle for independence, while several hundred others eventually left for the United States or returned to Europe. These numbers are based on the most widely accepted estimates, and while some sources vary slightly, the difference does not change the broader story. By the end of 1803, the impossible had happened. The enslaved population had defeated the French. On January 1, 1804, Haiti declared independence and became the first independent country in Latin America. But the turmoil did not end there. In the months following independence, a violent purge targeted the remaining white colonist population, estimated at about 5,000. A statement made by the Haitian politician Bois Antonin shows the intensity of the moment. For our declaration of independence, we should have the skin of a white man for parchment, his skull for an inkwell, his blood for ink, and a bayonet for pen. Yet this massacre excluded the Poles. Haitians had not forgotten their support during the war. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the first ruler of Haiti, ordered that none of the Poles were to be touched. By April 22, 1804, the purge ended, and around this time an estimated 400 Poles remained in the country. These Polish soldiers settled mostly in the mountainous village of Cazale, located north of Port-au-Prince, the capital city. Over the decades, they married Haitian women, became farmers, and mixed into the local population. They changed their names, they blended into rural life, they disappeared from official records for more than a century, although their memory lived on in the communities they joined. The name Cazale likely predates their arrival, though local folklore claims it comes from Kaj Zalewski, meaning the House of Zalewski, a Polish surname. In addition to Cazale being the main hub of Polish descendants in Haiti, smaller pockets of Polish families also exist in La Val-de-Jacmel, Font-de-Blancs, Port-Salut, and Saint-Jean-de-Sud, and I hope I managed to nail the French pronunciations. Their presence in these areas is much smaller, and Cazale remains the only settlement where the Polish heritage has had a lasting and visible impact. In 1805, Dessalines formally recognized the Poles who had supported the revolution. He granted them land and full citizenship. Under Article 13 of the new constitution, he declared them legally black, placing them in the same civic category as the formerly enslaved. This decision was not symbolic. It dissolved racial distinction in law for those who had stood with the revolution, giving them equal rights and protections in the new republic. In Haiti's order, the men who had once served under Napoleon became part of the foundation of the country. This was codified in black and white within the 1805 constitution. No white man of whatever nation he may be shall put his foot on this territory with the title of master or proprietor, neither shall he in the future acquire any property therein. The preceding article cannot in the smallest degree affect white women who have been neutralized Haitians by government, nor does it extend to children already born or that may be born of the said woman. The Germans and Polanders neutralized by government are also comprised in the dispositions of the present article. Inside Cazale and nearby villages, the idea of being a Pole, or Polon as Haitians say, became a quite marker of difference. Outsiders often noticed lighter skin, blue eyes, or different hair textures. They sometimes called the villagers Moonvoy, meaning red people. This label usually came from outsiders and referred to their appearance rather than their identity. Within Cazale, the meaning was simpler. If you were from Cazale, you were Polon. The identity lived in stories, in altered surnames, and in the way others perceived them, shaping a sense of difference that locals understood more as geography than ethnicity. One of the most interesting cultural outcomes of this history emerges in religion. When the Polish soldiers arrived in 1802, they carried with them the images of the Black Madonna of Częstochowa, an important icon in Polish Catholic life. In Haiti, the image blended with the Vodou spirit Ezili Dantor, who is often shown with the same dark features and facial scars as the Polish Madonna. Polish lithographs of the icon circulated among rural communities and entered Vodou shrines, becoming sacred objects in their own right. This was not an abstract idea. It was a lived fusion where Polish and Haitian spiritual traditions met in daily ritual practice. Throughout the 19th and early 20th century, the Polish Haitians remained largely invisible to official history. They had no political influence and no state to claim them. Yet they did not forget themselves. Cazale remained poor and isolated, linked to the rest of Haiti only by rough mountain roads. The community survived through farming, seasonal migration, and a quiet sense of identity. In 1969, that identity became dangerous. The Duvalier regime, ruled by François Duvalier and later by his son Jean-Claude, controlled Haiti through state violence, a secret police force, and an ideology built on authoritarian power. After accusing Cazale of harboring communist sympathizers, militias entered the village. What followed was a massacre. Men were taken from their homes and executed, women were assaulted, families were destroyed. Survivors believed they were targeted because of their appearance, though historians note that the attack fit the regime's wider campaign against political opponents. No investigation followed, no one was held accountable. The trauma of 1969 remains central to the Polon memory. Unfortunately, the Polish language did not survive in Haiti. Haitian Creole replaced it within a generation. Today, no one in Cazale speaks or understands Polish. The only traces remain in place names and surnames. Some families believe their names once ended in ski, but over time the endings disappeared. Recently, some parents have begun giving children names like Jonski or Luski, not from memory but as a symbolic effort to reclaim a lost heritage. International interest in the Poles of Haiti rose in 1983 when Pope John Paul II visited the country. Being Polish himself, he spoke about the Polish contribution to Haiti's independence during a public mass. It was the most visible recognition of their role in nearly 2 centuries. The visit drew curiosity from researchers, journalists, and artists. Some Poles traveled to Cazale searching for lost relatives. Most left without finding any cultural continuity. The ancestry was real, but the cultural bridge had disappeared. The Polish heritage had faded. In the early 2000s, a Polish opera was staged in Cazale. Locals performed, visitors watched. It was a meaningful gesture, but it did little to change the material reality of the village. Many young people continue to leave in search of opportunity. The old cemetery still contains weathered graves with names few can read. An Italian author, Riccardo Orizio, who visited Cazale in 1996, described the settlement with the following words. Cazale has no electricity, no phone, no running water, no nurse, no cars, no school, and now no church. There are no shops, nor is there a central square. Even the graveyard with all Polish names on the headstones is semi-abandoned. People are buried near their homes, the grave marked by 2 sticks for a cross. Today, being Polon in Haiti means carrying a past that rarely appears in history books. It means growing up with stories of foreign soldiers who became neighbors, of faces that looked a little different, and of a Vodou spirit who carries the features of a Polish icon. It means surviving in a country that rarely looked back at you. The story of the Polish Haitians is not romantic. It's a story of disobedience, absorption, trauma, and survival. It's not a footnote. It's not an oddity. It's what happens when people are forced to choose between obedience and conscience, and then become part of the land they decide to call home. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.